Turn on the way to an OSU win. The Cowboys take it over Iowa State 20-14 against the Cyclones in Boone Pickens Stadium and finally stop the bleeding from the last 2 weeks. Gideon Hamilton, Rashaun Woods here inside our RV General Store mobile studio right across the street from Eskimo Joe's, Joe State Tailgate. And Rashaun, so we've got a bunch of plays to talk about, as you would expect in a close game that is decided by some of them. A lot of folks might not even remember all the way back to the first and second quarter of this game because so many different things happened. But the most notable one that everyone will be discussing is the change at quarterback. Early on in the game, Gunnar Gundy, who was the starting quarterback in this game after we were told Garrett Rangel had been banged up last week against Kansas, didn't really practice that much this week. And Spencer Sanders was officially listed as doubtful, not out, but we figured he wouldn't play. And so Gundy lost his helmet on a play. Both quarterbacks run out on the field to replace him. They pull Rangel back. Sanders goes in. It's a 4th and 1. He is a handoff. They lose about 4 or 5 yards and turn the ball over on downs, but we thought that was the extent of it. Gundy continues to be erratic, had a terrific throw to John Paul Richardson for a touchdown, but also was turning the ball over and was totally ineffective offensively. Then all of a sudden, Spencer Sanders appears as the guy that's driving this offense, led them to a touchdown drive that ended up being the definitive score of this game. And, this one will go down in the history books for him as, a kid that fought through injury. None of us thought he was going to play today. He did and played a huge role in this game.
Yeah, Super Sanders is the nickname I'm giving him today. The guy had to have just gotten good enough to play or healed up today. Like literally, I didn't think they expected him to be ready to go, but hey, the guy got healed up. He got healthy, at least healthy enough to go out and just flat out change the game. As soon as he touched the field, as soon as he touched the football, he knew exactly where to go with it. And it's two things to me when I watch it is not only did the team get more confident with him in the game or appeared to be, but the play calling became more fluid and it would seem to be more comfortable. And I think that's just really comes from just not having confidence in Gunnar or Langell the last couple of weeks as a guy and the coordinator trying to keep him out of harm's way or just not don't want him to put him in situations where he can make bad plays worse, so to speak. So wasn't the case once Sanders got in the game and could obviously tell it was full confidence in the entire playbook in his abilities, and it ended up being just enough. And this team just from that one guy just transformed into an offense that could move the football, which is why he's a starter.
Okay, so we know you want to talk about this one. 405-900-9957, 405-900-WWLS. You can also chime in on our Trade Pros Heat and Air text line. That is 62582. Or on Twitter, that is @SportsAnimal. You can also drop us a comment. We're actually broadcasting live on our Sports Animal. It's @SportsAnimal Twitter page, Facebook, and YouTube as well. If you want to tune in there and give us a comment or ask Rashaun a question about tonight's game, we'd certainly love to hear from you. There was one other gigantic play. So Iowa State came out after half, and they scored right away. The hot knife through butter. Oklahoma State gets the ball back, and there's that pitch out to Dominic Richardson about 7 yards behind the line of scrimmage. He never gets a handle on it. Now, all of a sudden, it's way back in the backfield. And Jake Springfield comes from basically where he started on the offensive line, and you've got maybe a linebacker and maybe a safety there on the edge. I don't know who else was chasing after the ball, but he literally had to beat those guys to the football. I mean, we're talking about 11 yards behind the line of scrimmage. If they get that there, it's the 15-yard line. So, I mean, best case scenario, you're down like 17-10, but the way that they had just scored, I mean, it's likely it's 21-10 at that point,
right?
And it might be a little bit too much to come back from. So I thought that play was absolutely huge.
I mean, you got a guy follow the ball like that. It was just a great effort play, being a lot more important. I mean, keeping the football there is always important. Don't get me wrong, but it ended up being big time when you look at the know what it's like. They have a great understanding of the game and how fast the game goes, and then realize this. Okay, Spencer Sanders wasn't any different earlier on. We talked about him turning the ball over. We talked about him needing the game to slow down and so on and so forth. There was a lot of people that wasn't happy with his play, and he looked a lot like, Gunny looked today. And that's the reality. And that's what playing the position for a couple of years does for you. And so, I expect that this adversity for him and for Langell last week will help those guys continue to improve and be formidable down the road.
Keep in mind this 20-14 win, and some of this was Iowa State's doing, but half of those points came off the block punt. It was a 9-yard scoring drive. So outside of that, the only touchdown drive that Oklahoma State gave up, only scoring drive they gave up, was that very first drive coming out of halftime. So you have to give it up to them. If this team plays the last 2 weeks against Iowa State, the Cyclones put 30 on them, and they were able to buckle down and get some stops.
They did
today.
They did.
So,
that's right.
All right, we're going to come back. We'll take your phone calls. We'll take your text. Again, 405-900-9957. As I know, everybody stayed to the last play, so it's going to take people a while to get in their cars.
That's right.
Go and give us a phone call, 405-900-WWLS, 405-900-9957. You can also text us. Our Trade Pros Heat and Air text line is open at 62582. We'll hand out some awards as well, as Oklahoma State improves to 7-3 after a 20-14 victory over Iowa State. Gideon Hamilton, the two-time All-American Rashaun Woods, right across the street from Eskimo Joe's here in Stillwater, inside our RV General Store mobile studio. This is Football Feedback on the Sports Animal.
Listen to this right now. You can get the instant.
Football feedback and Bud Light
Who engineered the winning drive, and Charles is calling in, so we'll probably have him in a minute.
Video at Eskimo Joe's Joe State Tailgate. Sponsored by Twin Peaks, 43 Vision, Eskridge Honda, Valvoline,
Now, Charles on hold will do who engineered the winning drive here.
and Adams Family Real Estate. Who engineered the winning drive? Sponsored by Medco, the best source for geotechnical engineering and construction materials testing in Oklahoma. Who engineered the winning drive on WWLS, the sports animal.
Guys are up.
Football feedback rolls on 98.1 FM WWLS. The sports animal, Gideon Hamilton, Rashaun Woods here inside our RV General Store mobile studio right across the street from Eskimo Joe's, Joe State Tailgate, and Bud Light Game Time. OSU wins it tonight 20-14 over Iowa State. The Cowboys improved to 7-3 before Bedlam next week. And who engineered the winning drive, you might ask? For Oklahoma State, that was certainly Spencer Sanders. Spencer, this was not his first drive. He came in after Iowa State answered a Gunnar Gundy interception with one of their own on the very first play of that drive. Sanders came in, they go 3 and out, get the ball right back 4 plays later, and then Sanders to Jaden Nixon, the first play of that drive, to Bryson Green, Jaden Nixon again, Brennan Presley, 16 yards to the Iowa State 26, Bryson Green, another catch down to the 20. Then Spencer Sanders actually ran the ball down to the Iowa State 14 for a first down. Crowd went nuts for that. And then that fake run up to the line of scrimmage before finding a wide open Jaden Nixon in the end zone. That gave Oklahoma State a 17-14 lead. They would not relinquish that. Iowa State later in the game, what did you think about this decision for them to go for it? All 3 timeouts. I think there were 5.5 minutes left maybe. Guys, go for it now. More, the numbers tell them to, but at your own 25, 5 minutes left to go, all 3 timeouts. The way that Oklahoma State, I know Sanders is more dynamic when he came in the game, but you still only given up 20 points the entire game. What do you think about that choice? And it's easy for us to say, hey, it was terrible now because it didn't work, but that basically gifted Oklahoma State a field goal.
Yeah, if you're going to go for it, it's less than a yard. It appears to be a pretty good situation, but with 3 timeouts on the 25-yard line, you have time. You have an opportunity down the road to possibly, continue to drive or take a shot later on. But man, when guys are in the heat of the battle and you feel like it's the time, a lot of guys go on their instincts and how they feel, and that was just a situation where they felt like they can get it, and it ended up not being the case. Now, they ended up only giving a field goal up afterwards, and so it's still a 1-score game.
Right.
And so it ended up not being a difference in the game when you only give up 3 points there. So, and the turnovers earlier in the game, the 3 turnovers or the 2 turnovers early on only resulted in 3 points for the Cowboys, and both of them was on the Cowboys side of the field. Mm-hmm. And so those turnovers didn't hurt you necessarily either, other than they took away your opportunity to score. But all in all, we wouldn't be talking about it if they got the first down. Unfortunately for them, though, they didn't. And Cowboys ended up capitalizing with 3 points. Could have put the game away right then.
Yeah. Gundy, after the game, our guys were fantastic today on defense. One of the comments that he made early on is that press conference is ongoing. Right now, we're going to start to take your phone calls, 405-900-9957, 405-900-WWLS, or you can chime in on our Trade Pros Heat and Air text line. I know we've got a thread going on our Twitter feed at Sports Animal. You can also check us out on our Sports Animal Twitter feed. That's at Sports Animal, as we've got a live shot here from Stillwater, the Sports Animal YouTube page, Sports Animal Facebook as well. Gundy, the effort and enthusiasm in practice this week was as good as it was if we were 8-0. As he continues to make some comments, any of those that are relevant we'll pass along to you. Right now, though, we're going to check in with Charles. Charles, thanks for hanging on, man. You're on Football Feedback. Go ahead.
Hey, gentlemen, how you doing tonight?
Good, man. How are you?
Not too bad. So it's officially Bedlam week now, 2022, and I think Rashaun is still running. But one thing I've noticed this season that I guess we've been kind of spoiled with the special teams, but it seems like the punt block unit this year has just been struggling. I think we've given up 3 or 4 block punts this year, and I always know in Bedlam, seems like special teams always plays a key role. If you go back to Jalen Saunders returning a punt against Oklahoma State or Tyreek Hill returning a punt. So I just think that's one focus they need to really get cleaned up this week. And then if Rashaun, if you could, in your experience with Bedlam, what's going through the players' minds going into this week from your experience?
For most guys, they know playing OU is a big-time deal. And I think everybody feeds off the fact that it's a rivalry game, and you feed off the media, you feed off the fans around you. And so if you are unaware of the rivalry game when you get there, they make you very aware as the week goes on, whether it's the student body, people talking about it, the emphasis that's put on the game is evident by the people around you. Everybody does a great job unintentionally of really building it up because of the generations before built it up. And
Right.
So the year after year after year, it just becomes this game that everybody always talks about. The media can't just enjoy talking to guys and bringing up old games and so on and so forth. And so it just builds and builds and builds, not to even mention the social media aspect of it.
Right.
That these guys that got social media accounts can't get away from the game and the aura that's surrounding it.
Mm-hmm. Let's go ahead and head back to the phone. Before we do that, though, special teams. Hutton's out. You lose a lot of experience there. Everybody, makes a lot about the fact he was 32 years old, but he's been a part of the program for a long time. You feel confident in his ability to pin guys inside the 20 and things like that. You've got a new punter back there. Your thoughts on special teams? You feel very confident in Tanner Brown if the game comes down to something like that. But what are your thoughts on Cowboy special teams?
The times, or maybe the couple times they had a chance to pin them deep. The guys got to get down there and cover the kick. I thought there was a couple there was one in particular that I remember that it wasn't anybody down to keep the ball from rolling in the end zone.
Yeah, me too.
And so you've got to get down, and those guys got to do their job there because it was a slow roll. And so the punting situation and stuff and the block and doesn't really have a ton to do with the punter unless his operation time is significantly slower than Hutton's, which I didn't feel when I watched it that was the case. Mm-hmm. It all appeared, it just appeared that it was more so in the front and guys making sure that they do their job and giving a quick block before they take off. And outside of that, the operation time and how everything went appeared to still work the way it was supposed to, but it definitely is a cause for concern when you give up a block and you just so happen your punter, is done for the season. So definitely something to be concerned of there. But all in all, the special teams has been a bright spot for the Cowboys.
Let's go and bring in Paul. Paul, we appreciate hanging on, man. You're on you're on Football Feedback. Go ahead.
By the way, just congratulations for that Enid High School win. They haven't had anything up there since the 90s, I think. But anyhow, okay. About the quarterback, I don't know how to assess quarterbacks. I just want your feedback on that. Do you possibly go into the transfer portal next year, or how does he go forward from here, assuming Sanders leaves?
All right. Appreciate the call, Paul. What do you think?
Yeah. First and foremost, you got to continue to develop the guys that you have. Okay. That's the utmost importance. The recruiting process is just the other part of it. You want to go out every year and get a guy that's better than the guy that you have. That should always be your goal. And you should never, especially at that position, pass on an opportunity to get a guy that wants to come to Oklahoma State and that can potentially make plays for you. This offense is set up for a dual threat guy to have the most success. They've had a lot of drop back pass type guys that have done pretty well as well, but Spencer Sanders is a dual threat guy that, they like running the quarterback with a little bit. To me, if you're going to do that for one guy, maybe you should have at least two guys that fit that realm. Oklahoma State doesn't have that. They just have Spencer Sanders, and then everybody else are more pocket-oriented guys. And so that changes things significantly when you're putting in a game plan. And then you get a guy like Spencer Sanders down, that's 30% of what you're trying to do offensively. If he's incapable of running, the next guy's incapable of running. Mm-hmm. And so from a recruiting standpoint, if that's where you want to go, you need to probably get one guy a year. Just because of the transfer portal, you every year you have to reserve a spot, in my opinion, for at least one guy at that position because it's so important. And then with the guys that you have, continue to develop those guys because Gunner and Langell are going to continue to improve and will eventually, if they figure things out, be a guy that can help this team win. I don't think that today's sample size just makes you say, okay, let's just throw the current quarterback room away and just go get another guy. Yeah, we've seen OU do it. You've seen some other programs do it. But Oklahoma State has continually showed us that player development is of the foremost importance of this program, and is why this program has had success over the past 20 years. Is because Coach Gundy and company have done a great job of developing guys which, on the hoof do not appear to be ready to play, but with time, just like Spencer Sanders, everybody's ready to fire him. Now we love him, right? That is taking time for him to get to that point, and I think it's important that people that are responsible for those decisions realize that, and then people that don't understand pay attention.
Before we head back to the phones right now, we're going to find out who rose to the occasion in tonight's game.
Who rose to the occasion? Sponsored by Park Ridge Medical Clinic, dedicated to providing breakthrough remedies, treating the root cause of ED to men in the greater Oklahoma City area.
Yeah, I mean, it's tough to go with anybody but Spencer, and you kind of wonder what that moment was like. And maybe this is something that Gundy will address or Sanders will address after the game. We'll be able to relay that to you, but you kind of wonder, like, are you good? And kind of what the feeling was going in, because I truly do believe that it was break glass in case of emergency only there, with how banged up he has been really the last month of the season, but especially after what happened against Kansas State. And you can just imagine right now kind of what that moment on the sidelines was like, where he's like, hey, are you good? And Spencer has to give him the okay. I mean, he obviously went in earlier in the game for one play, but it's another thing to, take over for the rest of the game.
Right. Yeah. It is as much as we talk about the decisions that Gundy make, that was definitely the right one. We don't talk about enough about the right decisions that he makes. And Spencer looked as close to healthy as he's looked in a while, and I would assume that he was pretty close to being healthy. He just probably didn't take the snaps that Gunner took.
Yep.
And when you go through and you've got a guy, particularly at quarterback, that's the right thing to do. The guy's taking the reps. He's taking the team with the ones. You're playing Iowa State, who struggles, and it's a good situation for him to be in to start. And it gives you an opportunity for Spencer to really come back 100%, or as close to it as he needs to be. And so the thought process is good logic. It didn't quite work out exactly the way they probably wanted it to. They probably did not want Spencer to be on the field at all this game.
Yeah.
But, hey, it didn't work out. The plan didn't work, and they were able to adjust. He was able to come in the game and still do some good things for this offense. And at the end of the day, the decision made sense, and it got the victory for the Cowboys.
You think because obviously there's going to be the theory out there among the fan base where, and I don't subscribe to this at all after the way that they played the last 2 weeks, that he thought he could get away with playing Gunner Gundy against Iowa State and get a win and then keep Spencer Sanders' status unclear until, the day of the OU game where he goes out there and plays. Because the way that they played the last couple of weeks, I mean, you're trying to get this guy back to play today just so you still have a minute chance to get to Arlington.
Yeah, that is maybe some thought process there. I mean, it makes sense. But it's not a conspiracy. In most cases, it's not a conspiracy theory. It's a theorist type deal. But you need to have. If you feel like you can win with Gunner, then you give him more time to rest. I don't see it any way past that. I don't know if it's this big mind game they're trying to play with OU. I think when you lose 2 games in a row, they're worried about beating Iowa State. I mean, they just lost to Kansas, for crying out loud. And so I don't know if that's necessarily the case, because Jaden Bray, we talked about him. He burned what potentially could have been a red shirt by playing today.
Yeah.
And so that means to me that it was extremely important to have everybody ready to go for this game. And there wasn't any hiding when he could have very well not played him.
Sure.
And then redshirted him and just played him in the OU game and they not know. And so that's a very parallel situation, which I think definitively makes sense that Coach Gundy wanted to have everybody available, and there was just the reason of injury of why he wasn't available to start the game.
Now, Sam Hutchins, who works for the student paper here, the Oak Legion, he's in the room, says Coach Gundy says Spencer Sanders didn't practice much this week. He was actually gone most of the week when his grandfather died. So probably a couple of days practice there that he missed those reps as well. And obviously they're continuing to make sure that he's fully healthy. Let's go ahead and head back to the phones. Coach T has been patiently waiting. Coach, you're on Football Feedback. Go ahead, man.
Hello?
Yeah, go ahead. Missed connection there. We saw several of those today. 405-900-9957, 405-900-WWLS. Trade Pros Heat and Air text line also open for you at 62582. Definitely an unexpected route en route to victory today, as we'll bring Coach T back into the fold. Coach, you got us?
Yeah, sorry about that, fellas. I punched the wrong button.
No problem.
Hey, wow. Another strange game, huh? I mean, it seems like O State has these strange games sometimes. But my question is, well, first statement that, the defense made a little bit of a comeback today, albeit it was served up against one of the worst offenses in the league.
Sure.
But that's probably what they needed a little bit. They needed that confidence and an opportunity to kind of get themselves together. Now, I would ask you guys this, if you know anything, what is the situation for like Tyler Lacey and some of the other defensive players, if you've heard anything? And I think that, next week, is going to be a dogfight because OU is going to be playing for their bowl life. And I think it should be a very interesting game. But if Spencer is healthy and maybe we get Wilson back at center, I think we're sitting pretty good.
Yeah, thanks for the call, Coach. Yeah, Preston's kind of been in and out of the lineup, so I think they feel with one more week of rest that they can maybe get him back on the field. I'm not telling you anything from the inside or anything like that. Trace's deal is bad. Tyler, there's a chance that he could work his way back. It was really encouraging, although I didn't see Braden out there at all. There's Braden Johnson supposed to play, and I didn't see him. They definitely didn't throw to him as far as I could tell, unless it was when I was walking over here.
Right.
So hopefully with another week of not much activity, he can get out there. But he wasn't on the injury report before the game, and everybody assumed because Jaden Bray was out there that he was going to play too.
Right.
So, I mean, with some of these guys, you hope that they're trending in the right direction. OU is going to be motivated next week, no matter what people think about that. At 5-5, those guys don't want to miss out on a bowl game. So they'd love to win in Bedlam. It's a big game for OU too. So that's going to be interesting, and hopefully Oklahoma State can have as many hands on deck as they've had in a while for that game in Norman, because no matter what we've seen, they're going to need them against an offense that can be very talented. They struggled today in the rain in Morgantown, and the way Oklahoma State's offense has performed the last 3 weeks, even against OU's defense, they're going to need some kind of catalyst for something good to happen. So phone lines open for you, 405-900-9957, 405-900-WWLS, our Trade Pros Heat and Air text line. We're going to check in on that here in just a moment. 62582 as Texas and TCU are about to get underway. That should be a fun game and certainly an important game for the Big 12 championship standings as well. Gideon Hamilton, Rashaun Woods, right across the street from Eskimo Joe's here in Stillwater. Very festive atmosphere as people walking back from Boone Pickens Stadium, about to head out of town or maybe head into Joe's for a celebratory drink or a bite here. We're inside our RV General Store mobile studio, Bud Light Game Time, and football feedback. 98.1 FM, WWLS, the sports animal.
To 20. OU now 5-5, 2-5 in conference, hosting Oklahoma State next Saturday. Could find out kickoff time for that late this evening. Tulsa loses to Memphis 26-10 on Thursday. Golden Hurricane 3-7, 1-5 in conference. Their last home game of the year this coming Friday against South Florida at 8 o'clock. Top 25, or first of all, Big 12 scores. Texas Tech leads Kansas 17-7. That's in the first quarter. Also in the first quarter, number 19, K-State and Baylor, no score. A game that's about to kick off, number 4, TCU, and number 18, Texas. Top 25 games in progress. Number 1, Georgia leads Mississippi State 7-0 in the first quarter. Also in the first, number 25, Washington leads number 6, Oregon 7-0. First quarter, no score, number 15, North Carolina, and Wake Forest. Top 25, this afternoon, Boston College knocks off number 16, NC State, 21-20. Number 22, Central Florida defeats number 17, Tulane, 38-31. Number 2, Ohio State crushes Indiana 56-14. Number 3, Michigan defeats Nebraska 34-3. Number 5, Tennessee wallops Missouri 66-24. Number 7, LSU defeats Arkansas 13-10. And number 9, Alabama outlasts number 11, Ole Miss 30-24.
Football feedback and Bud Light Game Time from inside the RV General Store mobile studio at Eskimo Joe's Joe State Tailgate. Sponsored by Clearsight LASIK, the law office.
Who at the Eskridge Mile? Yep. If you want to call for hardest working player, you can do that.
I will.
Mr. Electric and Oklahoma Farm Bureau Insurance. Who went the Eskridge Mile? Sponsored by Eskridge Honda. Going the Eskridge Mile for you. Eskridge Honda on I-240 or EskridgeHonda.com.
You guys are up?
Hey, football feedback rolls on here on the Sports Animal. Gideon Hamilton, Rashaun Woods, right across the street from Joe's in Stillwater, inside our RV General Store mobile studio. Great setup by Jay Pitts, Cisco today. Appreciate all of their hard work during this long day of college football as Oklahoma State wins it tonight 20-14 over Iowa State as super sub Spencer Sanders saves the day for OSU. The hardest working player, I think you alluded to this guy a little bit earlier, and it reflects in the numbers as well. Kendall Daniels tied for team lead in total tackles, had 4 solo tackles, tied for team lead with TFL with 1.5, and had that interception that he kind of rips away there. So I thought he kind of went the Eskridge Mile. What about you?
Yeah, no question. Even caused the fumble. And a big-time game for him. Big time. I mean, he hit that guy, and he had the ball in the opposite arm. And this the sheer force of it just dislodged that football coming downhill like that, 6'5", coming flying down like that as a freshman. God, man. Dude's big time. Okay, I'm talking about first-day guy.
You're excited about this guy's potential.
First day guy flying around and hitting guys like that at 6'5".
Yeah.
And a freshman. Big time. Okay. I'm telling you, one of the best safeties that'll probably come through here.
Really?
I think he's that caliber of a kid.
Wow.
Yes, sir.
Cowboys improved to 7-3 with this victory. Iowa State drops to 4-6. As Matt Myers said, we don't know what kickoff time of Bedlam is or what network it will be shown on next week. But as soon as we get that information, we will pass that along to you. There is one piece of information I can pass along to you from the post-game locker room, and that is Spencer Sanders made no bones about the fact that he will start next week. I will be the starter in that game. So he's ready for Bedlam next week. And anything else pops out there, we'll be able to pass that along to you. We are going to hear from Mike Gundy in just a few minutes. The entirety of his post-game remarks, maybe what he was thinking with the decision going into this week at quarterback, and then what went through his mind during the game. So you want to be sure to stay tuned for that. We're going to hear from Mike Gundy momentarily. In the meantime, we still have an opportunity to take your phone calls at 405-900-9957, 405-900-WWLS. We'd also love to get your text on our Trade Pros Heat and Air text line at 62582. And, now there is one of the things that we talked about prior to the game is how do you hold it together when it seems like nothing's going your way? Now, how do you build on this moving forward if you're Oklahoma State? Because was this a perfect game? Not even close. But there are some things to build on. There are some things that you can show guys in film and say, hey, we're doing the right thing here.
Right. And I think you start defensively. Really struggled the last couple for majority of the season getting stops. They were able to get to the quarterback pretty consistently today. That's one of the main things. The pressure, that they were able to apply when they did bring it was enough to throw off throws, to get to the quarterback. And we need to see more of it. It puts guys on the defensive line and linebackers in one-on-one situations. And we can't, Oklahoma State can't cover for 3 and 4 seconds against some of these teams that can really throw. And that will be the case next week as well. And so you got to get to that guy and make him uncomfortable. Today they were able to do that. Offensively, having Spencer Sanders back is just, this offense is just a different team, right? And so, from a confidence standpoint, they should feel pretty good going into Norman against really a defense that hadn't stopped anybody.
Right.
And so you talk about defensive struggles. It will be next week which defense can figure it out.
Mm-hmm.
And today, Oklahoma State has really made some positive steps in doing that. Although it was just against Iowa State, I get that. But again, success is success. OU, on the other hand, they actually played pretty decent defensively this particular game, but it was West Virginia.
Right.
They couldn't get the stop late in the game, and unfortunately lost to by a field goal and walk-off field goal. And so it's, you play a little bit better, but it's still not the win. And so that affects you. That affects the morale of the team, no matter what the coaches say. And going into a big game, I would assume that both teams would be ready to play regardless. But my man, that's a tough loss for OU, and it's a big win regardless of who you play for Oklahoma State, avoiding a 3-game skid.
Sure. Let's go ahead and head back to the phones. Mike is next. Mike, you're on Football Feedback. Go ahead.
Hey guys, how are you doing?
Good, man. How are you?
Hi, good. Thanks for taking my call. My question is, and I'll take it off the air because I'm sitting here watching 2 games.
Yeah.
I've got the garage man cave going on with 3 TVs. So for OSU to make it to the championship game, TCU's got to win out, and then Kansas State's got to lose twice.
Yeah, because the tiebreaker with Kansas State obviously goes to them if it's head-to-head. And then, I think the way that works out is against Baylor. Oklahoma State would have a tiebreaker there if they're involved too. Oklahoma State wants to avoid any 3-way tiebreakers. But, what you said, to my understanding anyway, that's what they want to hear. All right, appreciate the phone call. 405-900-9957. Let's bring in Rusty. Rusty, you're on Football Feedback. Go ahead.
Hey, guys. Definitely loved listening to you guys. Loved watching the game. From Enid High, so congrats on the win there. But my question is, watching the football game today, the OSU defense, I think, caused Iowa State to have a few turnovers, if I remember right.
Yep.
But it just felt like we couldn't do anything with those turnovers. Any thoughts on that?
I mean, they turned the ball over 5 times. There's only been one FCS team that's turned the ball over 5 times and won, and Iowa State had a good shot throwing into the end zone late in that game. So he's exactly right. But, I mean, you're playing with a quarterback who's inexperienced, where the playbook I don't think is necessarily as open there. You made an observation earlier that when Spencer Sanders came into the game, that not only were players energized, and we've seen that plenty of times before through all walks of life, but seemed like the play calling really opened up from that point forward. So you kind of wonder what that would have looked like if Spencer is on the field for those first 3 takeaways, and if Oklahoma State takes advantage of those, maybe, but that wasn't the case.
Yeah. It's all about confidence in the guy that you have back there. You got to know that Gunner has to know the offense, right? I mean, it's not like high school where he may not know 40% of the offense.
Yeah.
It's just a situation where you don't want to put him in a bad spot, but not taking advantage of opportunities to throw the ball down the field, and just running the ball on 1st and 2nd down actually does just that of what you're trying to avoid.
Yep.
You're trying to avoid putting him in a bad spot, but when you can't run the football, you end up doing that exact thing. Throwing the football on 1st down is really where you get him confidence throwing the ball. Now, and that's just my personal opinion there. You want to try and avoid third down and longs as best as you can. Throw the ball on first down, maybe run it on second if you're able to complete the pass. But third down and long, to me, like even now, like it's RPO down for somebody, for me, that I know maybe we can't protect, or I don't have the confidence that we'll be able to get the ball, push the ball down the field when they drop 8.
And those outside zones, man, it was like there was a pot of gold on the sideline. Like, I mean, just straight along the line of scrimmage. And it's like he's not going to beat anybody to the edge quick enough to get around there. And I think they went to that 2 or 3 times. And it was like, hey, man, this isn't going to work here, especially in early downs. So anyway, 405-900-9957, 405-900-WWLS. Trade Proceed in their text line open 62582. And, of course, Bedlam next week. You talked about sort of what that means to players, coaches, of course, the fan base in this area. A little bit of the luster worn off, at least this week, but not for the Cowboys as long as they have something to play for.
Right. You know, Cowboys, both teams have got to continue to play. I think OU is doing a great job of really, I wouldn't say salvaging the season, because that's a tough loss today. And then last week, obviously, as well, they're in a situation where they could drop, 2, 3 in a row, which I don't know if they've ever been in it. I can't remember. I John Blake era, maybe. Mm-hmm. And so they're playing hard, though. They're doing the things that they need to do to try and, muster up some success. But they've got a long way to go just from a recruiting standpoint. The guys they have out there is just not what OU is usually used to. And we've talked about that part of it on that side. Oklahoma State-wise, if there's any chance that they have a chance, they need to win the game. And I think we saw that today. I thought the way the game was called, I thought getting guys playing that could have redshirted its own, those things are what you have to do when you know that your back is kind of against the wall. And Spencer Sanders going in and playing when not being there for one reason or another was exactly that. Because typically guys that aren't at practice, regardless of the reason, typically won't play. And that's just kind of the standard. And so when you're in trouble and everything is kind of on the line, and you've got a veteran like that with unforeseen circumstances that he had to overcome that week and put him out there, hey, it ended up working out. And in most cases, it's not always like that.
I'm going to paraphrase because we can't air this, but Marshall Scott, our man who joins us almost every pregame show, asked Spencer after the game, said, what about the possibility, was it ever talked about, you kind of shutting things down with the shoulder, got 4 games left, discretion, the better part of valor there. And Spencer said, I'm too competitive for that stuff.
Yeah. And I knew that, brief times that I've ever talked to him, or when you watch him play, his demeanor in his interviews, scream that. He's all about his team. He's all about going out there and competing because he loves to play. And nothing moving forward is guaranteed. And that's a great for the Oklahoma State. Mm-hmm. But the reality, I think the reality of it is those guys have a choice to do whatever they want to do. It's their future, and all you can really do is just be thankful that. He's as competitive as he is and wants to play and finish out his career here as a Cowboy and play every game that he could possibly play.
And if you're just getting in your car, he confirmed that he is going to start next week against OU. All right, it's time for one final award. That's going to be the hardest working player of tonight's game.
The hardest working player of the game. Sponsored by Oklahoma Farm Bureau Insurance. From livestock to equipment, they have you covered. Visit okfbinsurance.com to find an agent near you.
Rashaun, hardest working player today.
Hardest working player. That's a tough one. I mean, everybody's working hard.
Yeah.
What stood out? Because it's not a who made the most plays type deal. It could very well have been.
Let me go and let me do this one. Jake Springfield, because I think the game changes if he doesn't go get that ball. I think the game
right.
totally
That's
changes if he doesn't go get that ball.
That's right. Great effort.
And that's like you're looking at these two guys, and you don't even have time to think about it. He just has that mentality of I've got to go land on this thing. I'm up there in the press box, and I'm like, oh, this is gone.
Yeah.
Whether it's a scoop and score or not, they're going to have the ball at the 20, and they're going to go in. This is a disaster here. And he goes, and I don't know if we're having the same conversations right now. If he doesn't go and say, hey, I might not have a chance to get this thing, but I'm going to give it everything, then he ends up landing on it. That was a big play by Jay. So hopefully that's acknowledged there during the week, and I'm sure it will be during film. Rashaun, some final thoughts, because this week's going to be beat Iowa State, and Iowa State can't score, that type of thing. This was a big deal. This is a good win for the Cowboys.
That's right. Big win because it avoided a 3-game skid. The Cowboys were able to get back on that winning side, which they needed from a morale standpoint. Spencer Sanders is back. They're starting to get guys back. Johnson is probably going to be back. If you hope you get a couple of offensive linemen back. Lacey hopefully will be ready to play, and the reality of this deal is they can continue and improve and win out from here. Now, the goal of hoping for a Big 12 championship or even further, there's a glimmer of hope there, but I don't think that this season can be defined by not being able the disappointment of not being a Big 12 champion if it doesn't happen.
Yeah.
The guys have continued to play hard. Injuries, unfortunately, are a part of the game, and this is one of the worst injury bugs that any team in the country has had for a while. And so Oklahoma State's ability, the coach's ability to get these guys to continue to play, right the ship, is definitely admirable in my book.
Your guys ready to shock the world this week? They're ready to what you want from your guys, I know, is for some of them to end the career the right way, a way that they can be proud of, or to kind of head into next season on a good note after accomplishing something that hasn't been done in Enid in a couple of decades, basically.
That's right. And there are some really good teams, and we've lost some really tough games. We've played in the toughest district in Oklahoma football this year, and our guys have continued to play hard. They've done everything that we've asked them to do and really raised their game of their play. It's never about the team that we're playing, though. At least in my mind, it's about making sure that we are being the best versions of ourselves, that we're executing the things that we can do. And so when we do that, it's been more than enough this year.
Yeah.
Against a great team like Bigsby or Jinx or any of those teams that we play, if we are not in complete understanding or working hard and doing what we're supposed to do from execution standpoint, and that not be the main focus, we have absolutely no chance or no reason to be worried about what the other team can do.
Right.
And so the deal is that what you can do, what you have to do, and those are the things that we focus on and we'll focus on this week. And then when we get to the game, if it's enough, then it'll be enough. If not, every day is about continuing to get better and being the best that you can be. And so those guys understand that. Mm-hmm. And if our best is enough to win, then it's enough to win. But we will be prepared. We're going to do things right, and we're going to play football the right way, and we're going to be physical. So with that being said, our guys are excited about making it to the second round. And having the chance to go down to a very familiar foe in Bigsby.
Great job this year.
Thank you.
Stick around. We are going to hear from the head coach of the Oklahoma State Cowboys. Mike Gundy is coming up next. You definitely want to hear what was his thought process during the game, so he's going to let us in on that. Matt Meyer's going to have an up-to-the-second scoreboard on Texas and TCU and some of these other big games that are going on tonight in college football. I want to thank Tim, Stan, everybody at Joe's. I want to thank Cisco and Jay and everybody here for the Sports Animal. For Rashaun, I'm Gideon. We will be back with you next Saturday. We'll be in Norman for Bedlam, so be sure to join us then. Football feedback rolls on the Sports Animal.
Guys, y'all